Here's what you gotta ask. Just one easy question. You're gonna go, okay, let's say that somebody, if we were living in Nazi Germany, he would be like the...
But as far as like my own form of commodity production, I work with union labor in union shops in the United States of America, and it's domestically manufactured when I do merchandising. And I have some form of cooperative organization where the people that I work with, not my workers per se, but people that I work with, whether it be my producers or editors, have full autonomy over their times, full autonomy over how much they make, full autonomy over a percentage of the profits or even more. Not only that, but they also have editorial independence, like in the case of...
Keep in mind that for Hasan here, I don't know if he knows this and he's just playing a clever game. None of what he said has anything to do with socialism. Socialism or socialist ideas would have to do with these workers cooperatively owning the brands that they're working for, not having their own time to work, not having their own computers, not setting their own schedules, none of that shit. It would be having some ownership over what's actually being produced, which none of them have any ownership over it, obviously, because Hasan doesn't want to give up any power to his brand because he's a good capitalist. But it's funny that he brings up all these other things, like they go on what he's doing right now. It's funny because nobody will ever call him out for it because people just don't know enough. But what he's doing right now is actually the equivalent of when Elon Musk was like, when Elon Musk was saying like, oh, or when he installed the ice cream cone machine in the fucking Tesla factory, the SpaceX factory. That's the same thing.
That's there. The reason I had to.
How does Train actually win the argument here?
As a streamer.
I don't think I want to listen. What Train needs to say is, if you believe in the tenets of socialism and you think it's a positive way forward, what you should be doing is you should be using your money to invest in systems that can be self-sustaining and perpetuating in society as they would be in an ideal socialist society. So a mutual aid, like, here are a couple of things that I can think of right off the bat. I don't know about the legality of these things, and this is just coming off the top of the dome. But let's say, for instance, you invest in some sort of community infrastructure where everybody throws $10 or $20 into a pot every week for a neighborhood where you get like a beefy dude, maybe some guy that used to be a bouncer, and that's like your community guy that you call if something's wrong, right? Let's say that you're an ACAB person, you don't believe in the police, fuck them, you don't like them, blah, 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 blah. Everybody pitches in 10 or 20 bucks a week, or maybe even 10 or 20 bucks a month, and then some dude is on call basically to answer if somebody feels like there's someone in their backyard, somebody they don't trust or whatever, and they can call that guy into the police. That'd be an example of something that's like mutual aid. You've created another, hopefully self-sustaining service that replaces a service that a capitalist society was providing you. That would be like an idea of mutual aid, I guess. Or it could be something like somebody, like you pay somebody in the neighborhood to grow like a little fucking vegetable garden in the back, and then you buy vegetables from them, et cetera, et cetera. It's about creating kind of these self-sustaining ecosystems, or these self-sustaining systems that can be part of a greater ecosystem that more closely resembles the socialist society you'd want, rather than relying on capital invested products like ownership of all of that, means of production, all that shit to produce goods and services you need, basically, right? Ugh. But socialists, I don't even think socialists believe this can work. When they all get rich, none of them ever want to do any of this. They all go and shop at like the biggest capitalist stores ever. They don't give a fuck about any of this. And but Train just doesn't have like the vocabulary to push in that direction because he's not familiar with much of these terms, which is fair. I mean, most socialists don't know anything about this shit. That's why, again, 99% of socialists online that do mutual aid, when they say they're doing mutual aid, what they really mean is they're just doing fundraising. They're just donating money to something. They're not really doing mutual aid at all. A good example is the Black Panthers used to set up a school lunch program for black communities. Sure, or like the Mafia or whatever that used to run like trash services and shit in New York or whatever, you know? Why do you think Hasan is so blatant with buying designer clothes and living in luxury, so to speak? Doesn't he care about his image in the eyes of socialists/leftists? No. He doesn't care about his image in the eyes of socialists. Socialism is his image, right? The socialist aesthetic is the hottest, sexiest thing right now. If we were living in Nazi Germany, he would be like the Nazi on the radio with like the coolest fucking... Hugo Boss, was that the Nazi brand? I don't know. He'd be wearing those outfits or whatever. He doesn't give a fuck about like socialism and communism per se. They're just the talking points that he echoes because that's like the sexiest aesthetic to wear right now. And obviously like designer clothes, luxury fashion, private planes, Burning Man, those things are all like part of that ecosystem as well. It's about like whatever makes you basically look like the coolest. And his body's like a billboard for whatever like the coolest ideology is, basically. It's essentially what it is. This is the easy question that makes all of these kind of guys mauled, okay? Here's what you gotta ask. It's just one easy question. You're gonna go, okay, let's say that somebody is just like you, okay? If we ignore what you say on stream, what's the difference between you and a capitalist? and then that's it, and then the conversation is over, because truthfully his answer is nothing.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I said that in a different way at the beginning, right? I said preaching socialism without action is literally just capitalism.
Yeah, but you got to lean in harder to that, because then he'll push on a bunch of weird, dumb ways to kind of like fight against that. But you should force an answer for like, well, what's the difference between capitalists and you, if you just ignore what you talk about on stream? Like, what's the difference between you and a capitalist? And make him actually answer that question, because he won't be able to give you an answer on that.
Well, I think the difference in his mind or in others' minds are the goalpost gets moved on what defines a capitalist. First, it's the millionaires, then it becomes the 9-figure millionaire or 8-figure millionaires. Then, when you become an 8-figure millionaire yourself, it becomes the 9-figure millionaires. And once you become a 9-figure millionaire yourself, suddenly it becomes the billionaires, right? Like,
yeah, but if you want, remember, he used this definition in the beginning, and it would do you well to remember this if you're going to have actual debates about socialism and capitalism. Socialism and capitalism don't have anything to do with how much money you make. It has to do with the relationship between the means of production and the laborers that produce things, right? So, for instance, like in a capitalist economy, you have a guy that owns capital, and he generally brings in labor to work with that capital to create revenues, right? And of those revenues, the capitalist keeps some, it's called profit, and then the laborer takes whatever the capitalist gives him. Now, a lot of communists/socialists will call that profit that the capitalist takes, they would call that theft, right? They would say that, or they might say exploitation. But so when Hasan says things, because he was starting to give you a whole bunch of reasons for like, oh, no, I am kind of a socialist. And he talks about like workers setting their own schedules and having their own freedom to do whatever and getting pay raises. That's all capitalist shit. Nothing about that is socialist. Socialists would actually, even giving somebody a percentage of the profits has nothing to do with socialism. That's still capitalism, because he's the sole owner. At any point in time, if Hasan wanted to, he could fire every single worker and replace him with somebody else. That's what a capitalist can do. What Hasan has never done, and what he will never do, because he's a good boy capitalist, like all capitalists are, is giving away parts of the actual ownership of the business structure to his employees. That's what socialism is. He will never do that, because he wouldn't want to give away part of his brand. Rightfully so. I don't think he should. He's a smart guy. He's built it all himself. Fuck sharing that shit with people you bring in just to work it. But he would say that everybody else should, but he would never do that. But yeah.
I think that's why in the beginning of the conversation, I literally stated, like, if he would have came on, for his entire brand and just said, listen, I'm a capitalist, but I believe in certain socialist systems that should be in place, kind of in conjunction with the capitalist ones, right?
Yeah, but that's not socialism at all. Socialist systems?
Of course not.
Yeah. What you're talking about there is, that's like what Republicans used to call socialism, like socialized healthcare. That's not socialism. That's just government action. Yeah.
So not socialism. What I'm saying is to just meet in the middle. Instead of looking at it as being just a socialist or looking at it just being a capitalist, find a system that optimizes the benefits of both. Right? That's the proper way to preach things, in my opinion, because that's what I believe in the future. Like, that's our only hope.
Yeah, but he would just say that he does that. But if you want to talk about benefiting from both, then what you're really talking about is capitalism. Because in a capitalist system, you can have private-owned means of production, and you can have people that run co-ops and stuff. That's one of the nice things about capitalism. It's relatively flexible. But if we lived in a socialist country, all private ownership would be banned. So you wouldn't be able to do that. So the mixed model that you're talking about can only happen in a capitalist form of organization, but it couldn't happen in a socialist one.
Okay. So then what I'm talking about would have to happen in a capitalistic government, and then we would just implement socialist systems within that capitalistic government.
Yeah, there are different, like if you want to do like a co-op, like a cooperatively owned thing, nothing is stopping you from doing that right now,
So what kind of government? Okay, so let me ask you this: what kind of government would it be if, or not government? What kind of system would we have in place if it operated in a capitalistic fashion, but it worked in conjunction with, let's say, a baseline free healthcare, a baseline education system that encourages people to go to school, finish school, and come out with a baseline degree, bachelor's degree or bachelor of arts or whatever the hell, right?
Yeah, I mean that's just.
Would that just be capitalism?
Yeah, you just call that government. Systems? You just call that like government intervention, but it's still the markets. All of your market forces and everything are still like capitalist driven. Like Sweden and Norway, those are capitalist countries. They're not part socialist. Those are just full on. Those are capitalist countries. You can call it like a welfare state. You can call it like socialized systems, government-ran systems, but nothing about that is like, they're not cooperatively owned by the people. None of that is socialism.